I was standing in the village square when I heard my father's voice behind me. 20 goats, he said. And a cow. I didn't turn around. I already knew what was happening. My hands were shaking as I held the empty basket against my chest. The morning sun felt too bright, too warm. Everything felt wrong. She can't give you children, my mother added, her voice flat. But she's strong. She can work. That's when I understood. They weren't discussing my marriage. They were selling me. My name is Elena. I was 28 years old the day my parents traded me like livestock. And this is the story of how the worst moment of my life led me to a love I never thought I deserved. Before we continue, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and comment where you are watching from. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. 3 years before that morning in the square, I had been married to Thomas. He was a good man. Everyone said so. Tall, hard-working, with kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. We were happy at first. At least, I thought we were. But month after month, year after year, my body betrayed me. No child came. No small heartbeat grew inside me. And slowly, Thomas's kind eyes started looking past me instead of at me. He never said the words. He didn't have to. His mother said them for him. A woman who cannot give her husband a child is not a wife. She's a burden. Thomas divorced me quietly. No anger. No shouting. Just papers signed and a door closed. He remarried 6 months later. Last I heard, his new wife was expecting their second child. I moved back to my parents' house. My father stopped looking at me during meals. My mother sighed whenever I entered a room. I became a ghost in my own home. Then came the morning in the square. The man who bought me was named Mr. Holder. He was a grain merchant from 2 towns over. 60 years old, with a gray beard and cold eyes. He didn't want a wife. He wanted a servant who wouldn't ask for wages. She'll do, he said, looking me over like I was a horse. He counted out the goats. 20 of them, bleeding and pulling at their ropes. Then he handed over the papers for the cow. My father took the money without meeting my eyes. My mother turned away. And just like that, I belonged to someone else. Mr. Holder's house was large but empty. Not empty of furniture. It had plenty of that. Empty of warmth, of sound, of life. He showed me to a small room at the back of the house. You'll sleep here. You'll cook, clean, and tend the animals. You won't speak unless I ask you a question. You won't leave the property without permission. I nodded. What else could I do? The first week, I barely spoke 10 words. I woke before sunrise, prepared his meals, scrubbed his floors, fed his chickens. At night, I lay in my narrow bed and stared at the ceiling, wondering if this was all my life would ever be. Then, on the 8th day, I met the widower. His name was Daniel Mitchell. He lived on the property next to Mr. Holder's, though I hadn't seen him during my first week. His land was bigger, his house nicer, but there was something about it that looked tired, worn down. I was hanging laundry when I first saw him. He was standing by the fence that divided the properties, watching me. Not in a cruel way. Not in the way Mr. Holder looked at me, like I was a tool he'd purchased. Daniel looked at me like I was a person he was trying to understand. You're new here, he said. I nodded, keeping my eyes on the clothesline. I'm Daniel. I live next door. Elena, I said quietly. He didn't ask me why I was there. Didn't ask about Mr. Holder. He just nodded and said, It's good to meet you, Elena. Then he walked away. I should have forgotten about it. It was just a neighbor being polite. But that night, lying in my small bed, I thought about the way he'd said my name. Like it mattered. Like I mattered. It had been so long since anyone had made me feel that way. The second time I saw Daniel, I heard them first. Children. For voices talking over each other, laughing, arguing about something that only children could argue about with such passion. I was in Mr. Holder's vegetable garden, pulling weeds, when they appeared at the fence. 4 children. 3 girls and a boy. The oldest was a girl, maybe 12, with serious dark eyes and her father's quiet way of watching. The boy was next, perhaps 10, with messy hair and dirt on his knees. Then came 2 younger girls, twins by the look of them, maybe 7 years old, holding hands. Papa said you're Miss Elena, the oldest girl said. I straightened up, wiping my hands on my apron. I am. I'm Sarah, she said. Then she pointed to the others. That's Jacob, and those are the twins, Mary and Martha. Hello, I said softly. The twins giggled. Jacob stared at me with open curiosity. Sarah just kept watching me with those serious eyes. Our mama died 2 years ago, Sarah said suddenly. Papa tries, but he's not good at braiding hair. Or cooking anything except porridge. And he forgets to check if we've washed behind our ears. Sarah, Jacob hissed. Papa said not to bother her. I'm not bothering. I'm just talking. I felt something crack open in my chest. Something I'd kept closed for so long. These children, they looked at me with no judgment. No disappointment. Just simple, honest curiosity. Your papa's right, I said gently. You shouldn't bother the neighbors. But you look nice, little Mary said. And sad, Martha added. Children see things adults try to hide. I'd forgotten that. I should get back to work, I said. But as I turned away, Sarah called out. Will you be here tomorrow? I looked back at her. At all 4 of them, standing at the fence like small birds on a wire. Yes, I said. I'll be here. And somehow, that felt like a promise. Daniel came to the fence 3 days later. At the same time I was tending the garden. This time he was alone. I apologize for my children, he said. They've been curious about you. They're sweet, I said, and I meant it. He smiled. Just a small one, but it changed his whole face. Made him look younger. Sweet isn't always the word I'd use. Loud, messy, stubborn. But yes, they're sweet too. I found myself smiling back. When was the last time I'd smiled at someone? They miss having a woman around, Daniel said, his voice going quieter. I do my best, but there are things a father can't be. No matter how hard he tries. You seem like a good father, I said. I'm a trying father. That's not always the same thing. We stood there in comfortable silence for a moment. A bird sang somewhere in the trees. The sun was warm on my shoulders. Mr. Holder treats you well? Daniel asked, and there was something careful in his voice. I hesitated. He feeds me. Gives me a place to sleep. That's not what I asked. I looked at him then, really looked at him. Daniel was maybe 35, with lines around his eyes that came from smiling and from worry in equal measure. He had strong hands, the kind that came from real work. And his eyes were kind. He treats me like what I am, I said finally. Something he bought. Daniel's jaw tightened. You're not a thing, Elena. My parents didn't agree. Then your parents are fools. The words were so simple, so direct, and they hit something deep inside me. I felt tears prick my eyes and I turned away quickly, pretending to examine a tomato plant. I should go, Daniel said softly. But Elena, if you ever need anything at all, you come to my door. You hear me? I nodded, not trusting my voice. He left, but I could feel the weight of his words long after he'd gone. Someone cared. After all this time, someone cared. The next morning, I found a basket by the garden gate. Inside were 4 things. A loaf of fresh bread still warm, a jar of honey, a bunch of wildflowers, and a note in a child's handwriting. For Miss Elena. Because nobody should be sad. From Sarah, Jacob, Mary, and Martha. I held that note in my hands for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. Not from sadness, but from something else. Something that felt almost like hope. Mr. Holder noticed the flowers when he came out for his breakfast. Where did those come from? The children next door, I said quietly. He grunted. Mitchell's kids. He spoils them. Lets them run wild since their mother died. He shook his head. A man needs a firm hand with children. Especially girls. I said nothing. I'd learned that Mr. Holder didn't want conversation. He wanted agreement. But that afternoon, when I was sure he was away in town, I baked a small cake with the ingredients I was allowed to use. Nothing fancy. Just a simple honey cake. I covered it with a cloth and walked to Daniel's fence. The children came running the moment they saw me. Miss Elena, you came to visit. Is that food? I laughed. Actually laughed. It's a thank you. For the bread and the flowers. Sarah took the cake carefully, like it was made of glass. You didn't have to. I wanted to. Daniel appeared from the barn, wiping his hands on a cloth. When he saw me, his expression softened. Elena, I wanted to thank your children, I said, for their kindness. The kindness was small, he said, but I'm glad it mattered. Everything matters, I said quietly, when you have nothing. His eyes held mine for a long moment. Then Jacob pulled on his sleeve. Papa, can Miss Elena stay for supper? Jacob, Sarah scolded. She's busy. Actually, Daniel said slowly, that's not a bad idea. If you're allowed, Elena. If Mr. Holder wouldn't mind. I should have said no. Should have gone back to my small room and my silent meals. But the twins were looking at me with such hope, and Sarah was trying not to look like she hoped too, and Jacob was already tugging my hand toward the house. Just for a little while, I heard myself say. Daniel smiled. Just for a little while then. But a little while turned into an evening I would remember for the rest of my life. Daniel's kitchen was chaos. Beautiful, wonderful chaos. Mary was setting the table, putting the forks on the wrong side. Martha was helping by rearranging them after her. Jacob was telling a long, complicated story about a frog he'd found in the creek. Sarah was actually doing the work of 3 children, stirring a pot on the stove while simultaneously preventing her siblings from destroying the kitchen. And Daniel was trying to manage all of it while looking completely overwhelmed. I can help, I said. You're a guest, Sarah said firmly. Very firmly. Like she'd been practicing how to be the woman of the house. Then let me be a helpful guest, I said gently. I moved to the stove. Sarah hesitated, then stepped aside. Together, we finished the meal. It wasn't fancy, just stew and bread. But it was made with care. When we sat down to eat, the children talked over each other, sharing stories about their day. Daniel occasionally tried to enforce table manners, but his heart wasn't really in it. He looked tired, but also happy, like he was holding on to something precious that kept trying to slip through his fingers. Miss Elena, Mary said suddenly, why do you live with the mean man? Mary, Daniel said sharply. But I smiled. It's all right. Mr. Holder isn't mean. He's just quiet. He yells at his dogs, Jacob said. And he told me to get off his property when I was just chasing a butterfly, Martha added. He doesn't like children very much, I admitted. Why not? Mary asked. Children are the best. Some people forget that, I said softly, looking at Daniel. But some people remember. We finished dinner. The children insisted I try Jacob's favorite dessert, which turned out to be bread with honey. The same honey they'd given me that morning. They watched me eat it like it was the most important thing in the world. Good, Martha asked. Perfect, I said and meant it. After dinner, I helped Sarah clean up. The children played outside in the fading light. Daniel and I stood at the sink, washing dishes side by side. Thank you, he said quietly. For coming. For helping. For just being here. Thank you for inviting me. They need this, he said, watching his children through the window. They need to remember what it's like to have someone who cares. Someone who's not just their tired father trying his best. You're doing more than your best, I said. They're beautiful children. Happy children. They're lonely children, he said. We're all lonely. This house has been quiet for 2 years. Too quiet. He turned to look at me. But tonight it felt alive again. Something passed between us in that moment. Something neither of us was ready to name. I should go, I said. Before it gets dark. I'll walk you back. It's just next door. I'll walk you anyway. We stood at the fence between our properties. The fence that was supposed to be a boundary. But right then it felt more like a bridge. Elena, Daniel said. Can I ask you something? Yes. Why did your parents do it? Why did they sell you to him? I'd been waiting for this question. Dreading it. But somehow with Daniel, I wanted to answer. Because I'm broken, I said simply. I can't have children. My first husband divorced me because of it. My parents were ashamed. And Mr. Holder wanted a servant, not a wife. So it worked out for everyone. Except me. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You're not broken. My body is. Your body is just your body. It's not who you are. I laughed, but it came out bitter. Tell that to everyone who thinks a woman is only worth the children she can bear. I'm telling it to you, he said firmly. Because it's true. And because I think you need to hear it. I felt tears coming again. Why did this man keep making me cry? My children love you already, he said softly. After one evening. One meal. They came alive tonight in a way I haven't seen since their mother died. That's not broken, Elena. That's beautiful. Daniel, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I just want you to know. You're not what they told you that you are. He stepped back from the fence. Good night, Elena. Good night. I watched him walk back to his house. Watched the light come on in the kitchen. Saw the shadows of his children moving behind the curtains. And I felt something I'd thought was dead forever. I felt wanted. The next 3 months were the strangest of my life. During the day, I belonged to Mr. Holder. I cooked his meals, cleaned his house, tended his animals. He barely spoke to me. I was furniture to him. Useful furniture, but nothing more. But in the stolen moments, early mornings in the garden, late afternoons when Mr. Holder went to town, I belonged to myself and to the family next door. The children came to the fence almost every day. They'd tell me about school, about their adventures, about the 1,000 small dramas that made up their lives. I'd listen, and sometimes I'd tell them stories. Old folk tales my grandmother had told me before she died. Before everything fell apart, Sarah started asking me questions about her mother. Careful questions, like she was testing whether I'd break if she pushed too hard. "What do you think Mama would say about my hair?" she asked one day. "I think she'd say it's beautiful," I said honestly. "But I also think she'd remind you to brush it every night." Sarah smiled. A real smile, not the careful one she usually wore. "That sounds like her." Jacob brought me things. A smooth rock from the creek. A bird's feather. A drawing he'd made of our 2 houses, with a bridge connecting them. "There's no bridge," I said gently. "There should be," he said stubbornly. The twins just wanted to hold my hands. To sit close. To feel like they had a mother again, even if it was just pretend. And Daniel watched it all with an expression I couldn't quite read. Something between grateful and sad. Between hopeful and afraid. We talked more now. Short conversations over the fence. Longer ones on the rare evenings when Mr. Holder was away, and I could visit for supper again. "You're good with them," he said one night. "They're easy to be good to." "Not always." He smiled. "Jacob has a stubborn streak a mile wide. Sarah thinks she has to be an adult before she's ready. And the twins, they're still so young. Still so hurt." "They're healing," I said. "Children are better at that than we are." "Are you?" he asked. "Healing?" I thought about it. "I don't know. Maybe. For the first time in a long time, I'm not just surviving. I'm living. A little bit. A little bit is a start." He walked me back to the fence that night, like he always did. But this time, he reached out and took my hand. Just for a moment. Just long enough for me to feel the warmth of his skin. "Thank you," he said, "for giving them back some of what they lost." "They've given me more than I've given them," I whispered. He squeezed my hand gently, then let go. I went back to my small room. But I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way his hand had felt in mine. Strong. Steady. Safe. I was falling in love. And I had no idea what to do about it. Mr. Holder noticed. I don't know when he started watching. But one morning, as I was preparing his breakfast, he said, "You spend a lot of time at that fence." My hands froze over the eggs I was cracking. "I'm sorry. The fence. Between my property and Mitchell's. You're there every day." "I work in the garden every day," I said carefully. "The fence is part of the garden. And the children, they come to talk to you. They're just children. Being friendly." He stood up from the table. Walked over to where I stood. He was much taller than me, and he used that height now looming over me. "I bought you," he said quietly. "Do you understand what that means? You're mine. My property. My servant. You don't belong to anyone else." "I know," I whispered. "Then stay away from that fence. Stay away from those children. Stay away from Mitchell." "But, no." His voice was hard. Final. "I've seen the way he looks at you. Like you're something precious. Like you're something that belongs to him. But you don't. You belong to me. And I don't share my property." He left for town right after breakfast. But his words hung in the air like smoke. I tried to work. Tried to focus on my chores. But all I could think about was Daniel. About the children. About the small piece of happiness I'd found in this terrible situation. And I realized something that terrified me. I'd rather risk Mr. Holder's anger than give up the only thing that made my life worth living. So that afternoon, when the children came to the fence, I didn't send them away. And when Daniel came to check on me, concerned because he'd heard Mr. Holder shouting that morning, I didn't pretend everything was fine. "He knows," I said simply. "About you. About the children. About us talking." "There's nothing wrong with neighbors talking," Daniel said, but his jaw was tight. "He doesn't see it that way. He says I belong to him." "You don't belong to anyone, Elena. You're a person, not a possession. The law might disagree. Then the law is wrong." We stood there, the fence between us, the weight of impossible situations pressing down on both our shoulders. "I won't stop," I said suddenly. I won't stop talking to your children. I won't stop caring about all of you. Even if it means making him angry. Elena, I don't want you to get hurt because of us. I'm already hurt, I said. I've been hurt for years. But you, all of you make me feel like maybe I'm not completely broken. And I need that. I need you. The words hung between us. Too honest. Too raw. I need you too, Daniel said quietly. We all do. That night, for the first time since coming to Mr. Holder's house, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt brave. 2 weeks later, everything changed. It started with Sarah. She came running to the fence one morning, tears streaming down her face. I was hanging laundry, and the moment I saw her, I dropped everything and went to her. What's wrong? What happened? It's Papa, she sobbed. He's hurt. He fell from the barn roof. He's bleeding and he won't wake up, and I don't know what to do. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I just ran. Mr. Holder was in town. I'd watched him leave an hour earlier. I had time. Daniel was lying in the barn, unconscious, blood pooling under his head. The children were standing around him, frozen with fear. Jacob was holding the twins, who were crying silently. Sarah, get me clean cloths and water. Jacob, take your sisters to the house. Now. They moved. Thank God they moved. I knelt beside Daniel, checked his breathing, his pulse. The wound on his head was bad, but not as bad as all the blood made it look. Head wounds always bled like that. Daniel, I said firmly. Daniel, can you hear me? His eyes fluttered, opened, focused on me slowly. Elena, don't move. You hit your head. The children are fine. They're scared, but they're fine. You need to stay still. Sarah came back with the water and cloths. Together, we cleaned the wound. It needed stitches, but I could do basic ones. My grandmother had taught me long ago. This will hurt, I warned him. Everything hurts, he said, but he smiled slightly. I stitched him up as carefully as I could. My hands were shaking, but they were steady enough. When I was done, I bandaged his head and helped him sit up slowly. You need to rest, I said. No climbing on roofs. No heavy work. For at least a week. I have work to do. Animals to feed. Children to care for. Then let me help. He looked at me. Really looked at me. Holder will be furious. Let him be furious. Elena. No, I said firmly. No more arguing. You're hurt. Your children need you alive. So you're going to rest, and I'm going to help, and that's final. For the first time since I'd known him, Daniel laughed. Then winced because laughing hurt. Yes, ma'am. I stayed all day. Fed the animals. Cooked dinner. Made sure the children ate. Put the twins to bed when they got tired. Sat with Sarah while she cried out all her fear. I thought he was going to die, she whispered. Like Mama. He's not going to die, I said firmly. I promise you, Sarah. He's going to be fine. How do you know? Because he has you four. And people who are loved that much don't just give up. When I finally left, the sun was setting. Daniel was resting upstairs. The house was quiet, but not empty. Not silent. Just peaceful. I walked back to Mr. Holder's property and found him waiting at the fence. Mr. Holder's face was cold. Colder than I'd ever seen it. Where were you? Daniel Mitchell was injured. I was helping. I told you to stay away from him. He was hurt. His children were scared. I don't care. He grabbed my arm. Not gently. I gave you an order. You disobeyed. There are consequences for disobedience. I looked at his hand on my arm, then at his face, and something inside me that had been bent for so long finally snapped back straight. Let go of me. You don't give me orders. Let go. Something in my voice made him release me. Maybe it was surprise. Maybe it was the fact that I'd never stood up to him before. You're going to regret this, he said. Maybe. But at least I'll regret something I chose to do, not something I was forced into. I walked past him, into the house, into my small room, and I locked the door. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding, but I felt alive, truly alive. For the first time in years, there was a knock on my door an hour later. Quiet, almost hesitant. Elena. It was Mr. Holder, but his voice was different, uncertain. We need to talk. I opened the door. He stood there, looking older than usual. Tired. I'm not a kind man, he said. I know that. I bought you because I needed help and you needed somewhere to go. It was practical. But, he paused. But you're a good woman. Better than I deserve. And those children next door. They need you. More than I do. I stared at him. What are you saying? I'm saying I release you. From our arrangement. You're free to go. Just like that. Just like that. He pulled out a paper. Already written. Already signed. I had this drawn up this afternoon. After I saw you running to help him. I realized you were never really mine. Not the way I thought you were. I took the paper. Read it. It was a release. Legal and binding. Why? I whispered. Because watching you with them, it reminded me of something I'd forgotten. That there are things more important than being right. More important than pride. He smiled, but it was sad. Go, Elena. Be with people who see you the way you deserve to be seen. I didn't know what to say. So I just said, thank you. He nodded. I'll expect you to finish out the week. Then you're free to go wherever you want. But I knew where I wanted to go. I'd known for a while now. I waited 3 days before I told Daniel. He was healing well. Still weak, but getting stronger. I'd been coming over every day to help with the children and the chores. Mr. Holder didn't say anything. Just watched me go with that same sad smile. On the third evening, after the children were in bed, Daniel and I sat on his porch. The stars were out. The night was warm. I have something to tell you, I said. He looked at me. That sounds serious. Mr. Holder released me. I'm free. Daniel went very still. Free. Free to go wherever I want. To do whatever I want. To be with whoever I want. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, What do you want, Elena? This was it. The moment where I could be brave or I could be safe. Where I could reach for something beautiful or protect myself from more pain. I chose bravery. I want to stay, I said. Here. With you. With your children. If you'll have me. Elena. I know it's complicated. I know I can't give you more children. I know I'm broken in ways that can't be fixed. But I love your children. And I took a breath. And I love you. I think I've loved you since the first time you said my name like it mattered. Daniel reached out and took my hand. You're not broken. And yes, you can't have children. But Elena, I already have 4. 4 beautiful, wonderful, exhausting children who need a mother. Who need you. Are you sure? Because I need you to be sure. I can't survive being rejected again. He stood up, pulled me to my feet, and then he did something that took my breath away. He knelt. Right there on his porch, this strong, kind man knelt in front of me. Elena, he said, I don't have much to offer. Just a messy house and 4 children and a heart that's been broken and healed and broken again. But it's yours. All of it. If you'll take it. I was crying. Of course I was crying. Yes, I whispered. Yes. He stood up and pulled me into his arms. And I felt something I'd never felt before. I felt home. We told the children the next morning. I was nervous. Terrified, really. What if they didn't want me? What if they felt like I was trying to replace their mother? But the moment Daniel said, Elena is going to stay with us. Permanently. All 4 children erupted. The twins jumped up and down, squealing. Jacob hooped and punched the air. And Sarah just walked over to me and hugged me. Tight. I was hoping, she whispered. I was hoping so much. Me too, I whispered back. The wedding was small. Just us, the children, a minister, and a few neighbors. Mr. Holder came. He stood in the back, and when it was over, he nodded at me once. A goodbye. A blessing. Then he left. I moved into Daniel's house. Into his life. Into his family. It wasn't perfect. The children had moments where they missed their mother. Where they pulled away from me because accepting me felt like betraying her. Sarah especially struggled. You're not my real mother, she said one night, angry about something small. You're right, I said calmly. I'm not. Your real mother was a wonderful woman who loved you very much. I could never replace her. I wouldn't want to. Then what are you? I'm someone who loves you. Someone who chooses you every day. Someone who's grateful for the chance to be part of your life. I paused. You don't have to call me mother. You don't have to love me the way you loved her. But I hope someday you'll let me love you. In my own way. Sarah cried. I held her. And slowly, very slowly, she let me in. Jacob was easier. He just wanted someone to listen to his stories and bandage his scrapes and tell him he was brave. The twins attached to me like little barnacles. They wanted to help with everything, hold my hand everywhere, sleep in my bed every time they had a nightmare. And Daniel watched it all with wonder. You're a natural mother, he said one night. I'm a learning mother, I corrected. But I'm trying. That's all anyone can do. Time passed. Seasons changed. My first autumn with them, we picked apples together, made cider, told stories by the fire. My first winter, I taught the twins to bake, read to them when the snow kept us inside, held them when they were sick. Spring came, and with it, Sarah's birthday. She turned 13, becoming a young woman. I asked her what she wanted. "I want you to teach me to braid hair," she said, "the way Mama used to do it." So I did. We sat together, and I braided her hair, and she cried a little, and I cried a little, and Daniel found us like that and just smiled. By summer, the children stopped saying Miss Elena and started saying Mama Elena, then just Mama. The first time Martha called me Mama without thinking about it, I froze. She looked scared, like she'd done something wrong. "It's okay," I said quickly. "You can call me whatever feels right." "Mama feels right," she said. "Is that okay?" "That's more than okay," I whispered. Daniel and I grew together too. Slowly, carefully, learning each other, learning how to be partners, how to be parents, how to be a family. Some nights, after the children were asleep, we'd sit on the porch, just the two of us, quiet, peaceful. "I never thought I'd have this," I said one night. "A family, a home, love. I never thought I'd find it twice," Daniel said. "I loved Anna. I'll always love her. But Elena, I love you too. Differently, but just as real. You don't have to explain. I want to, because you need to know. You're not second best. You're not a replacement. You're the second chapter. The one I didn't know I needed." I leaned against him. "I'm glad your chapter included me." "So am I." 2 years after our wedding, a letter came. It was from my mother. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Daniel stood beside me, solid and steady. "You don't have to read it," he said. "I know, but I think I need to." I opened it. The letter was short, simple. My mother's handwriting, shaky with age. "Dear Elena, I am writing to tell you that your father passed last month. Before he died, he asked me to write to you, to tell you that he was sorry, that selling you was the greatest mistake of his life, that he died with regret in his heart. I am also sorry. We were wrong. We believed lies about what makes a woman valuable, about what makes a life worth living. I heard that you married, that you have children now, stepchildren, but children nonetheless. I am happy for you. Truly, if you can find it in your heart, I would like to see you again. Before I die, I would like to tell you in person what I should have said years ago. You were never broken. You were always enough. Your mother." I read it twice, 3 times. Then I set it down. "What do you want to do?" Daniel asked. "I don't know. We talked about it. Daniel and I. The children too, because they deserve to know." "She hurt you," Sarah said, old beyond her years. "You don't owe her anything." "No," I agreed. "But maybe I owe myself something. Closure. Peace. Forgiveness." "Forgiveness for her?" Jacob asked. "Forgiveness for me," I said, "because carrying anger is heavy, and I'm tired of carrying heavy things." So I wrote back, told her I would visit, that I would bring my family. "Are you sure?" Daniel asked. "No, but I'm going anyway." The village looked smaller than I remembered, older, sadder. My mother's house was the same one I'd grown up in, but it looked different through my new eyes. Smaller, less powerful. She opened the door before we could knock, and when she saw me, she started to cry. "Elena, Mother." We stood there, so much unsaid between us. Then Martha, sweet Martha, took my hand and said, "Are you Elena's mama?" My mother looked at her, at all 4 children standing close to me, protective and curious. At Daniel, his hand on my shoulder. At the family I'd built from the ashes of the one I'd lost. "I was," my mother said quietly. "Once. But I gave up that right. She's our mama now," Mary said firmly. "And she's the best." My mother smiled through her tears. "I can see that." We went inside, drank tea, talked carefully about safe things. The children slowly relaxed, drawn in by my mother's gentle questions. She asked about school, about their interests, about their lives. She didn't ask about me giving her grandchildren, didn't mention my first marriage, didn't say anything about the past. Finally, when the children were playing outside and Daniel was giving us privacy, she said, "I failed you, Elena. Your father and I both did. We taught you that your worth was in your womb, that without children, you were nothing. We were wrong." "Yes," I said. You were. Can you forgive us? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know yet, I said honestly. But I can try. That's all I can promise right now. That's more than I deserve, she said. We left before dark. The children hugged my mother goodbye. She held each one like they were precious. Then she hugged me. Thank you, she whispered. For coming. For trying. For showing me what real motherhood looks like. On the ride home, Sarah asked, Are you okay, Mama? Yes, I said. And I meant it. I'm okay. Good, she said. Because we need you. I need you too, I said. All of you. Daniel took my hand, squeezed it gently, and I realized something. I'd been so focused on what I couldn't give that I'd missed what I could. I couldn't give Daniel more children, but I could give his children love, stability, a mother who chose them every single day. I couldn't give my parents grandchildren from my body, but I could give them the chance to know the children of my heart. I couldn't go back and change my past, but I could build my future, and that was enough, more than enough. Years passed like pages turning in a gentle book. Sarah grew into a beautiful young woman, smart, strong, kind. She went to university to study teaching. Because of you, she told me. You taught me that the best teachers are the ones who love you even when you're difficult. Jacob became a builder like his father, but he built more than houses. He built bridges. Between people. Between ideas. Someone has to connect things, he said with a grin. The twins, Mary and Martha, stayed close to home. Mary married a local farmer and had 3 children who called me Grandma. Martha became a nurse, caring for the sick with gentle hands and a fierce heart. And through it all, Daniel and I grew old together. We had quiet mornings and loud dinners. We had arguments and makeups. We had days where everything went wrong and days where everything was perfect. We had a life. My mother lived for 5 more years after our visit. We saw her regularly. The children grew to love her. She became the grandmother she'd never been, soft, generous with her time, full of stories and patience. When she died, she held my hand and said, I'm so proud of you, not for what you've become, but for who you always were. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. I forgive you, I said, and I meant it. Daniel and I stood at her grave, his arm around me, our grown children standing with us. You made peace with her, he said. I made peace with myself, I corrected. She was just part of the process. On our 20th wedding anniversary, the children threw us a party. All of them, plus their spouses, plus their children. Our house was full. Loud. Chaotic. Beautiful. 20 years, Daniel said, pulling me aside for a moment of quiet. Can you believe it? Some days, yes. Some days it feels like we just met. Do you have any regrets? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I regret the years before you, I said. The years I spent believing I was broken. But those years led me here. To you. To them. So maybe I don't regret them after all. Maybe they were just the path I had to walk. I'm glad you walked it, he said. Because it led you to us. We kissed. Our children groaned and laughed. Our grandchildren giggled. And I felt complete. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Daniel and I sat on the porch. The same porch where I'd confessed my love 20 years ago. Elena, he said, I need to tell you something. His tone made me nervous. What? I'm getting old. We both are. And I've been thinking, when I die. Daniel, let me finish. When I die, I want you to know that you made my life worth living. Twice. You gave my children a mother when they'd lost theirs. You gave me a partner when I thought I'd spend the rest of my life alone. You took broken pieces and made them into a family. We made them into a family, I corrected. Together. Together, he agreed. That's the point. You were never meant to be alone. And neither was I. We were meant to find each other. In all the world, in all the possible paths our lives could have taken, we were meant to find each other. Do you really believe that? I asked. I do. Because anything else means all of this was just luck. And I don't think we're that lucky. I think we were blessed. I leaned against him. Then I'm grateful for the blessing. So am I, he said. So am I. Daniel died 5 years later, peacefully in his sleep, with me beside him. The children came home. All of them. They grieved and they celebrated and they remembered. At the funeral, Sarah asked if I wanted to say anything. I stood up, looked at all the faces gathered there. Our children, our grandchildren, our neighbors, our friends. Daniel was a good man, I said. But more than that, he was a kind man. Kindness is harder than goodness. Goodness can be cold. Kindness is warm. Daniel was warm. He took a woman that the world had thrown away and made her feel valuable. He took children who'd lost their mother and taught them they could love again. He took broken pieces and built a family. But here's what I want you to know. He didn't save me. We saved each other. That's what love is. Not one person rescuing another, but two people choosing each other every day and building something together. I was told I was worthless because I couldn't have children, but Daniel's children became mine. Not by blood, not by biology, but by choice, by love. By every day I chose to be their mother, and they chose to be my children. So when you remember Daniel, remember this. He saw people for what they were, not for what they couldn't be. He loved people for their hearts, not their utility. And he taught me to do the same. I was barren. That's what they called me. But I wasn't empty. I was full. Full of love that just needed the right place to grow. Daniel gave me that place. And his children let me love them. And together, we built something beautiful. That's not a tragedy. That's a gift. There wasn't a dry eye in that church. I lived for 10 more years after Daniel died. 10 years of watching my grandchildren grow. Of teaching them to bake and tell stories and love each other. 10 years of being Grandma Elena to a crowd of children who'd never known me as anything else. Sarah became the principal of the local school. Jacob built a community center. Mary's farm thrived. Martha ran the town clinic. They all came to visit me. Regularly. Sometimes all at once, sometimes one at a time. They never forgot. Never abandoned me. You're the glue, Mary said once. That held all of us together. No, I said. Love is the glue. I just helped apply it. On my last day, because we all have a last day, I was surrounded by family. My children, my grandchildren, even a few great-grandchildren. Sarah held my hand. Thank you, she said, for everything. Thank you for letting me be your mother, I whispered. You were always our mother, Jacob said. From the first day we met you. The best mother, the twins said together. I closed my eyes. And I felt at peace, because I'd learned something important. Family isn't just blood. It's choice. It's commitment. It's showing up every day and choosing love over anger, forgiveness over bitterness, hope over despair. I'd been sold by my parents for being barren, but I'd been chosen by a widower and his children for being exactly who I was. And that had made all the difference. They buried me next to Daniel. Our headstone was simple. Daniel and Elena Mitchell. Together they built a family. Not from obligation, but from love. At my funeral, my youngest great-grandchild, only 5 years old, asked her mother, was great-grandma Elena really barren? Her body couldn't make babies, her mother said. But her heart could make a family. And that's what matters. Did she know she was loved? Every single day, her mother said. Every single day. And that was the truth. I'd started my story being sold. Being treated like I was worthless. Being told that my inability to bear children made me less than human. But I ended my story surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who loved me, who called me mama and grandma, who learned from me and laughed with me and chose me. Not because I'd given birth to them, but because I'd loved them. And in the end, that was the only thing that mattered. Love didn't require blood. It required choice. It required showing up. It required seeing people for who they were, not what they could give you. I'd been barren by the world's standards. But by the standards that mattered, by love's standards, I'd been rich beyond measure. And I'd lived a life worth living. Sometimes the family you build is more powerful than the family you're born into. Sometimes the children who choose you are more yours than the children you might have born. Sometimes being broken in one way opens you up to being whole in another. Elena was sold for being barren, but she was chosen for being exactly who she needed to be. And in that choice, she found everything she'd thought she'd lost: love, family, purpose, and peace. Her parents sold her for 20 goats and a cow. But Daniel and his children chose her for something that had no price: the content of her heart. And that, in the end, is the greatest love story of all. Not the love that comes from obligation or biology or necessity, but the love that comes from choice. The love that says, I see you, I know you, and I choose you, every single day. That's the love Elena found. And that's the love she gave back, multiplied 1,000 times over. This story reminds us that our worth isn't determined by what we can't do, but by how we love. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment below and tell us where you are watching from. The end.